My wealthy aunt left her fortune to the niece who sacrificed the most, so I made sure I lost everything first. Everything started falling apart when I was 28 and thought I had my life figured out. My aunt had always been the mysterious family member who sent expensive birthday gifts and showed up to holidays in designer clothes. She never married, never had kids, but somehow accumulated this massive fortune through investments and real estate deals throughout California. The family whispered about her wealth, but she kept most of her business private, living in this gorgeous mansion overlooking the Pacific. When she got sick last year, my three female cousins and I started visiting more often. Not because we were greedy, but because she seemed genuinely lonely for the first time in decades. She would tell us stories about her travels, her failed relationships, and how she wished she had made different choices. During one particularly emotional visit, she mentioned something that would change everything. She said she was rewriting her will and wanted to leave her fortune to the niece who had sacrificed the most for family. At first, I thought it was just one of her philosophical moments. She was always talking about sacrifice and what really mattered in life. But as weeks passed and her health declined, she kept bringing up this idea. She would ask us about our struggles, our losses, what we had given up for the people we loved. My cousins started sharing their stories, and I realized she was actually evaluating us. My oldest cousin had dropped out of college to care for her disabled mother. My second cousin had given up a promotion to move back home when her father had a heart attack. My youngest cousin had been supporting her unemployed husband for 3 years while he tried to start his own business. Their sacrifices were real, meaningful, and ongoing. Then there was me. I had a stable job, a comfortable apartment, and honestly, I had never really sacrificed anything significant for anyone. I was the cousin who always had her life together, who never needed help, who everyone came to for advice but never needed to lean on. I realized that in my aunt's eyes, I probably looked like the most selfish person in the family. The competitive part of me that had always driven my success started kicking in. I found myself thinking about what I could do to prove I was capable of sacrifice. Not because I was purely greedy, but because I genuinely felt like I had been coasting through life without ever really being tested. Maybe this was my chance to prove something to myself as much as to her. I started small. I began sending money to my parents regularly, claiming I wanted to help with their mortgage. I volunteered at the local food bank every weekend. I even adopted a senior dog from the shelter, telling everyone I wanted to give an older animal a chance. These things felt good, but they also felt superficial. I was still comfortable, still secure, still not really sacrificing anything that mattered. The turning point came when my aunt pulled me aside during what would be our last private conversation. She looked at me with those sharp eyes that had intimidated me since childhood and said she was disappointed. She said she had always seen potential in me, but I had chosen the easy path every time. She said real sacrifice meant losing something you actually valued, not just giving away excess. That night, I went home and stared at my life. My savings account, my career trajectory, my carefully planned future. I realized she was right. I had never truly risked anything, never put myself in a position where I might actually fail or struggle. I had always played it safe, always kept my options open, always maintained my comfortable bubble. The idea that came to me was so crazy that I almost dismissed it immediately. But the more I thought about it, the more it made sense. If my aunt wanted to see real sacrifice, I would show her what it looked like to lose everything that mattered to me. I would systematically destroy my comfortable life and prove that I was willing to risk it all for the people I loved. I started by quitting my job, not giving 2 weeks' notice, not finding another position first, just walking into my supervisor's office and resigning on the spot. I told them I needed to focus on family obligations, which was technically true. The look of shock on everyone's faces was almost worth it. I had been there for 6 years, had built a reputation, had projects depending on me. Walking away felt like jumping off a cliff. Next, I broke my lease and moved out of my apartment. I sold most of my furniture and belongings, keeping only what I could fit in my car. I moved in with my parents, telling them I was going through a rough patch and needed time to figure things out. They were worried but supportive, probably thinking I was having some kind of early midlife crisis. The hardest part was emptying my savings account. I had been building that safety net for years, watching it grow, feeling secure knowing it was there. I took almost everything and distributed it among family members who were struggling. I paid off my younger brother's student loans, covered my cousin's medical bills, and sent money to my grandmother for her prescription medications. Within 3 months, I had gone from being the most stable person in my family to being basically homeless and unemployed. I was sleeping on my childhood bedroom floor, using my parents' car to get around, and living off whatever odd jobs I could find. It was terrifying and liberating at the same time. My aunt noticed the changes immediately. During my next visit, she asked pointed questions about my living situation and my job. I was honest about everything, explaining that I had realized how insulated I had been from real struggle. I told her about the money I had given away, the security I had abandoned, the comfortable life I had dismantled. Her reaction was not what I expected. Instead of being impressed, she seemed almost angry. She asked me if I thought sacrifice was a performance, if I believed that creating artificial hardship was the same as genuine loss. She said that my cousins had sacrificed for necessity, for love, for circumstances beyond their control. What I had done was manipulate my own situation to fit what I thought she wanted to see. I left that visit feeling confused and frustrated. Had I made a terrible mistake? Had I destroyed my life for nothing? The weight of what I had done started hitting me in waves. I would wake up at night panicking about my future, about how I was going to rebuild everything I had thrown away. But something unexpected started happening. Living without my safety net, without my comfortable job and apartment, forced me to connect with my family in ways I never had before. I started helping my mother with her small business, doing bookkeeping and marketing tasks that I had never paid attention to before. I began spending real time with my father, helping him with projects around the house, and actually listening to his stories about his own struggles. My relationship with my parents deepened in ways I had never imagined. They started confiding in me about their financial worries, their health concerns, their fears about getting older. I realized that while I had been sending them money, I had never actually been present for them emotionally. Now that I was living with them, dependent on them, we were relating as adults for the first time. I also started noticing things about my community that I had been too busy to see before. The elderly woman next door who rarely had visitors, the family across the street who was clearly struggling to make ends meet, the teenagers who hung out at the park because they had nowhere else to go. Without my regular routine and comfortable bubble, I was seeing the world around me with fresh eyes. The odd jobs I was taking to earn money led me to meet people I never would have encountered in my previous life. I helped a single mother organize her garage sale, worked at a local farmer's market, and even spent a few weeks helping a neighbor renovate his basement. These experiences were teaching me skills I never knew I needed, and showing me resilience I didn't know I possessed. My cousins noticed the changes too. They started including me in family gatherings more, asking for my help with their problems, treating me less like the privileged cousin and more like someone who understood struggle. The dynamic in our family relationships was shifting, and I was becoming a different person than I had been just months earlier. But the real surprise came when my aunt called me about 5 months after I had dismantled my life. She wanted to see me alone, and her voice sounded different than it had in previous conversations. When I arrived at her house, she was sitting in her garden, looking frailer than I had ever seen her. She told me that she had been watching my transformation, not just the dramatic changes I had made, but how I had adapted to them. She said that what impressed her was not that I had given up my comfort, but that I had learned to live without it. She said that my cousins had been forced into sacrifice by circumstances, but I had chosen it and then figured out how to thrive. Then she said something that completely changed my understanding of the situation. She told me that the will had already been written months ago, and it had nothing to do with our recent conversations about sacrifice. She had been testing us, yes, but not for the inheritance. She had been trying to figure out which of us was strong enough to handle the responsibility of managing the family's financial future. She explained that the money was going to be split equally among all 4 of us, but she needed to choose someone to oversee the investments, the real estate, and the charitable giving she wanted to establish. She had been looking for someone who understood both prosperity and loss, who could relate to family members in different financial situations, and who had the resilience to handle the pressure that comes with managing wealth. The cousin who had always been stable and successful, she said, might not understand the struggles of family members who needed help, but someone who had experienced both security and uncertainty, who had learned to navigate hardship and still maintain relationships, would be better equipped to make decisions that truly served everyone. I felt like I had been hit by a truck. Everything I had put myself through, all the stress and fear and uncertainty, had been based on a misunderstanding. But as I sat there processing what she had told me, I realized something that surprised me. I was not devastated by the revelation. I was not even angry about the months of unnecessary hardship. Instead, I felt grateful. The experience had changed me in ways that had nothing to do with money or inheritance. I had discovered strength I didn't know I possessed, developed relationships I had been neglecting, and learned to find satisfaction in ways that had nothing to do with my bank account or job title. My aunt passed away 3 weeks later, peacefully in her sleep. The will reading was exactly as she had described. The 4 of us inherited equal amounts, enough to completely change our lives, but I was named as the executor and manager of the family trust. My cousins were supportive of the decision, especially after seeing how I had handled the previous months. But here is where the story takes its most unexpected turn. As I was going through my aunt's papers and personal belongings, I found a letter addressed to me, dated just days before our last conversation. In it, she revealed that she had known about my plan from the beginning. She had been watching me research her previous comments, had noticed the changes in my behavior, and had figured out that I was intentionally destroying my comfortable life. She wrote that she had been both impressed and concerned by my determination, but she wanted to see how I would handle the consequences of my choices. She said that watching me adapt and grow over those months had convinced her that I was the right person to trust with the family's financial future. She had not been testing my capacity for sacrifice. She had been testing my capacity for recovery. The letter also contained something that made me sit down hard on her kitchen floor. She had been secretly replacing the money I had given away to family members. Every loan payment I had made, every medical bill I had covered, every gift I had sent, she had been reimbursing from her own accounts. She had been protecting the family from my sacrificial gesture, while still allowing me to experience the consequences of my choices. My family members started calling me over the next few days, confused about mysterious deposits they had received. They had all assumed the money was coming from different sources: insurance payments, or accounting errors, or forgotten investments. No one had realized that my aunt had been orchestrating this elaborate safety net, while I thought I was risking everything. I felt a mixture of emotions that I still cannot fully describe. Relief that my family had not actually suffered because of my decisions. Amazement at the complexity of what my aunt had planned. Gratitude that she had cared enough to protect everyone while still allowing me to learn what I needed to learn. And a deep, overwhelming love for this woman who had understood me better than I had understood myself. But the biggest surprise was still coming. As I continued going through her papers, I found records of investments and accounts that had not been mentioned in the will. Properties in different states, stocks in companies I had never heard of, and a series of trust funds that had been set up decades ago. The inheritance we had received was significant, but it was apparently only a fraction of her actual wealth. There was another letter, this one addressed to all 4 of us together. She explained that the remainder of her estate would be distributed based on how we handled the initial inheritance. She wanted to see if we would use the money wisely, if we would maintain our family relationships, and if we would continue to support each other through both prosperity and hardship. She had set up a system where the additional funds would be released over time, based on criteria that she had established with her lawyers. Things like maintaining family gatherings, supporting members who faced financial difficulties, and making responsible investment decisions. It was like a decades-long test of our character and judgment. Reading this, I realized that my aunt had been planning this elaborate evaluation for years. She had been studying our personalities, our relationships, our values, and had designed a system that would reveal our true natures under pressure. Everything that had happened over the past year had been part of her plan, including my dramatic self-sabotage. Now, almost a year after her death, I am living a life that is completely different from what I had before, but also completely different from what I had during those months of artificial hardship. I moved out of my parents' house, but I stayed in the same town. I found work that is meaningful rather than just lucrative. I maintained the relationships I had deepened during my time of struggle. The money has allowed me to be generous with my family, but in ways that feel genuine rather than performative. I help my parents with their expenses, but I also spend time with them regularly. I support my cousins' goals and dreams, but I also stay connected to their daily lives. I have learned to balance security with purpose, comfort with challenge. Managing the family trust has turned out to be more complex and rewarding than I ever imagined. I work with financial advisors and lawyers, but I also spend time understanding each family member's needs and goals. I have learned about investments and real estate, but I have also learned about the responsibility that comes with making decisions that affect people you love. The additional funds from my aunt's estate have started coming through, distributed according to her mysterious criteria. Some of it has gone to family members who have faced unexpected challenges. Some of it has gone to charitable causes that align with values she established. And some of it has gone to investments that will continue to grow for future generations. But the most valuable thing I inherited from my aunt was not money at all. It was the understanding that security and risk, comfort and challenge, stability and growth are not opposites but partners. She taught me that real strength comes from being able to handle both prosperity and loss, both success and failure, both independence and interdependence. I think about her often, especially when I am facing decisions about the family's financial future. I wonder if she would be proud of the choices I am making, if she would approve of how I am balancing the different needs and personalities in our family. I hope that I am living up to the trust she placed in me, that I am honoring the complex gift she gave all of us. Sometimes, I wonder what would have happened if I had not made those dramatic changes to my life, if I had not quit my job and given away my savings and moved in with my parents. Would my aunt have chosen someone else to manage the trust? Would I have learned the same lessons about resilience and relationships? Would I have discovered the same capacity for adaptation and growth? But then I remember that she had been watching me for years, had been planning this elaborate test for decades. She knew me better than I knew myself, and she had designed a situation that would reveal exactly what she needed to see. My dramatic gesture was probably just one part of a much larger pattern that she had been observing and evaluating. The inheritance has changed my life in ways that go far beyond financial security. It has given me a sense of purpose and responsibility that I never had before. It has deepened my relationships with my family and my community. It has taught me that real wealth is not just about money, but about the capacity to use resources wisely and generously. I am grateful for every part of this strange journey, even the months of unnecessary hardship and stress. I am grateful for my aunt's wisdom and her elaborate planning. I am grateful for the family relationships that have been strengthened through this process. And I am grateful for the person I have become through learning to navigate both sacrifice and abundance. The story is not over yet. There are more funds to be distributed, more family members to support, more decisions to make about investments and charitable giving. But I feel prepared for whatever comes next, equipped with the knowledge that I can handle both loss and gain, both responsibility and freedom, both the weight of managing wealth and the joy of sharing it generously.